This is Johnny Dosco. Stay tuned for another Score Sheet podcast. Holy Kadelka!
Hello and welcome to another Score Sheet podcast. I'm happy to say that today I have as a guest Jeff Erickson. Jeff was one of the co-founders of what is now Rotowire.com. Hi Jeff, how are you?
Good, Jeff. How are you?
I am doing excellently. You guys started, was it Roto News when you first started?
Yep, back in 1997 it was Roto News. It was three of us, myself, Peter Schenke, and Herb Ilk. Three of us in the same fantasy league, all went to college together, decided that we'd want this information, and if we want it, other people would use it, and it's starting to become freely available on the internet, so we found a way to package it up together and use it, turn it into fantasy advice as well.
Well, you guys seem like rather quickly, within just a year or two, you were having like 1 million people visit your site for player news.
Yeah, we really exploded. Well, it helped that we were at a time when everybody was just starting to get their own home computers, get online, get access at home. Everybody had those Mac and crashes with the AOL disk that they sent you in the mail to get online with the dial-up. But we've certainly improved the technology quite a bit since then, and also we were the first to market with a really good idea, and it helped. We got some John Hunt from USA Today gave us and Baseball Weekly gave us a ton of publicity at the time, and we kind of just took off from there.
In 1997, that was definitely the early days of the internet.
Yeah, at least in terms of being publicly accessible. I remember first discovering it while I was in law school, because obviously I'd rather do that than be online than instead of actually study when I was in law school. So there you go.
Yeah, sports are more interesting than the law. Well, I remember as a user, it was pretty nice. You'd sit there at a draft and you wonder, gee, I wonder if this guy's injury is recovered or not, or if he broke his leg yesterday before I pick him. And you go on to Rotowire and click in his name and get an instant update of his health and status and projections. It was pretty nice.
Yeah, it's worked out, and we keep on adding different features here and there. Now the big thing is to try to get on like iPads and iPhones and things like that, portable media, because that's the new way to go. So we're jumping on that now a little bit more, and just trying to provide different features, different tools to help you win your leagues.
Yeah, well, I know about that mobile stuff. Score Sheet's in the same boat. We'd like to have all of our pages and draft scripts and everything work on every device possible, but unfortunately, there's an awful lot of different operating systems out there that we have to match up to.
All right. And for us, being able to run your leagues on them is one thing as opposed to just getting the information out. It's a little bit easier. We don't have to cater to too many different functionalities, so it's a little bit easier for us.
Yeah, well, and you're right. Mobile phones are definitely, people want to find out where Pujols signed or whatever, and they want to know that minute. So Rotowire.com, you guys have a mix of free information, and then you also offer premium content like more detailed analysis and various columnists and all.
Right. In fact, most of our content is behind the paywall. We offer various subscription packages, usually sports specials. People will sign up for a particular sport for that season, or in many cases, they'll go for a full year. We do a couple magazines. We provide content to our various partners like ESPN, Yahoo, and FoxSports.com. Of course, we do the radio show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio as well.
And then you'll start putting out projections for 2012 season in January sometime?
Yeah, probably in the next week or two. I've finished the initial setup projections, have to do some fine-tuning, have to adjust all the trades that have happened, of course. Each week I'll probably do some tweaking here and there, adjust it, as events warrant, injury news comes out, and sometimes just trying to build a consensus on a particular player, too.
Huh. Well, I know you're a Cincinnati Reds fan. What do you think about that trade they made for Matt Latos?
Well, I don't love it because we gave up a lot, but that's the going rate, too. I understood going in that Yonder Alonso and Yasmani Grandal were probably going to be guys that we're going to have to deal for an elite starting pitcher. The big question here is, does Matt Latos qualify as such? Is he going to be an ace? Can he be a number one starter? And can he do it outside of Petco Park? It's a gamble. It certainly is a gamble. I like it in a way because he's under contract control for 4 years, so from a financial standpoint, I like it a little bit better than some of the other pitchers that we could have gotten. I like it better than, say, for instance, Gio Gonzalez, who I'm a little bit worried about taking out of Oakland. I think maybe Cincinnati paid more than Washington did to get their respective starters, but at the same time, I think the upside is worth it with Latos. He's got to stay healthy. There's some questions about his off-the-field conduct and all that, and his maturity, I should say, just period. But I think at the end of the day, it's a worthy gamble, at least. It's something they had to do.
Well, it does seem like, as you said, that the going price for a top pitcher is a true package of really top prospects.
Right, and their draft strategy allowed them to have the prospects to do that too. That's the one thing I do like is they've been taking the best available. They've been willing to pay for it, and because of that, they had Grandal in their system. They had Yonder Alonso in the system. They didn't necessarily draft for need. They didn't draft for signability. They drafted high end prospects, turned that into what they think is going to be a high end starting pitcher. Now the question is that valuation right?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Gio. I actually have a friendly bet with my brother that Gio will be better because I've got Gio on a couple teams and traded a lot for him last year. I'm kind of one of those believers that sometimes left-handed pitchers develop a little later and find their control. And if he could get his walk rate down, I think Gio could really be a force.
Yeah, well, and the strikeouts are there, and I do like investing in pitchers like that when they come cheaply. Guys like Gio or Jonathan Sanchez, or you want to dig a little deeper. Felipe Paulino is another guy that kind of fits that mold. I like those sort of guys. You're right. I do think that there's a major upside that can come from them. And in the case of Gio, the walks have kind of sort of improved. Still at 4 per 9 inning, but it was incrementally better than last year. We'll see. The one thing is taking him out of that ballpark. We'll see what happens. Keep in mind that 3.12 ERA really was should have been about a quarter of a run higher. He had that one game in Texas that got rained out where he was getting slaughtered.
Yeah. Well, as a Giants fan, I kind of wish you had not mentioned Jonathan Sanchez because trading him for Melky Cabrera has really pretty much ruined my offseason.
It's the ultimate example of what we do in fantasy sports. Kansas City bought low and sold high in both situations. Now, it might be that, Melky, what he did last year is legit for real. And, if that's the case, it's something that the Giants desperately needed. And they were tired of the Sanchez act. They were tired of his control issues, how long it took him to come back from his injury. So I can see why they did that. They knew they weren't going to be able to afford Carlos Beltran on the free agent market. So they wanted to get another bat in there, but I don't know. At the same time, it's putting a lot of hope into guessing that he's for real. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I have this vision of Sanchez pitching like he did 2 years ago, but I think you are right. The Giants were willing to get rid of him. I just wish they had somehow gotten a slightly better, more consistent leadoff hitter type. I guess I'm not a big Melky fan.
I actually like getting Pagan better than getting Pagan. I think that might actually end up addressing some of your leadoff situation anyhow there a little bit. I'd like that trade a little bit better than the Melky Cabrera trade. I think that Pagan could be a guy. I don't know. Last year, he had a low batting average, so therefore his on base wasn't that great. But 44 walks and 478 at bats. It's not great, but it's useful. That's better than the walk rate of most of the Giants. So he could be useful, I think.
Oh, I think, yeah. In fact, as soon as they traded for Pagan, I was wondering if they could call KC up and reverse the trade. I don't really know why they need Pagan and Cabrera. They didn't give up much for Pagan. They gave up a middle reliever, which is kind of a fungible category.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to see how the playing time situation sifts out there in San Francisco between Huff and Belt at first or left field with Belt and Shearholtz. We'll see how that one works out and see what the Gary Brown schedule is like. I think that presume they're going to wait to try to call him up if possible. We'll see if some other veteran type that comes in eventually here too into the playing time picture, because I wouldn't put it past Sabian to trade for Seth Smith or something like that.
Yeah, they could. Well, because Shearholtz has kind of proven every year that he's a pretty good fourth, fifth outfielder, and he hasn't really ever seized hold of a starting job. And Belt, well, they couldn't possibly treat Belt worse than they did last year, so maybe he'll live up to the hype a little more this year.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing is it was so bad is that they burned that option right away. They called him up right, had him start the season and then just buried him after the first sign of struggle. Meanwhile, other guys that were just stinking up just as badly but weren't taking walks, they got, they kept on getting those chances. At least Belt through all of it, he kept his patience at the plate. So there is something to be said for that. They have to figure out what he is too. They have to figure out if he's a first baseman or an outfielder. Getting a better season of Aubrey Huff would, make that decision a little bit easier too. But I don't know. I think it's he's an interesting guy. He's not quite a buy low because everyone's still on that train. I think a little bit there. I think most people that I've run into are on board with his potential still.
Yeah. Well, speaking of buy lows and back to Cincinnati, I think I've had Homer Bailey forever. I know you and I in the past have discussed Homer Bailey, and you, much like me, have always been pretty high on him. You think this year will be rewarded for our great patience?
I hope so, but there's some reason for doubt because he keeps getting shoulder problems. I'll probably end up getting him again. The K rate went down a little bit last year. He was unlucky. His strand rate was low. His BABIP wasn't that especially low though. Velocity is still down from 2009. That's the thing to watch out for him. His average fastball in 2009 was over 94 miles an hour. Last year it was 92.2. There is going to be some natural drop in velocity as you get into your later 20s, but at the same time, that seems a little bit of a stark drop off, and he's going to have to learn how to deal with that otherwise. Be able to figure out how to miss bats otherwise, because he's not a guy that's going to rely on the ground balls all that often. He's about league average in terms of ground ball, fly ball, and in that ballpark, that means if he gets the ball up and he doesn't miss bats, he's a little bit in trouble. So I think it's a question of adjustments. Check out that shoulder strength at the beginning of spring training. If last year, he had some issues starting the season. If he still has that at the beginning of 2012, I'd stay away.
Well, and the other problem is he's not really young anymore. It's one thing to say he'll improve when he's 24 or 25, but he's actually been around for a few years.
Well, he's actually 25. He
No,
turns 26
really?
in May, so he's still not. He's not old. But yeah, this is a big year. This is a critical year because the Reds are going to have to figure out what sort of commitment they want to make to him too, because he's about to become a little bit more expensive, going through arbitration and all that. The Reds are going to have to decide what is he going to be. Right now, he's probably fourth starter. You got Cueto and Latos for sure. After that, it's a little bit mixed. Now the thing is, they also have Bronson Arroyo, who they had that inexplicable contract extension before last season, so he's still stuck with them for another couple more years. Mike Leake's there. They have to figure out what Aroldis Chapman is, so they still have some decisions to make.
Yeah, Chapman is kind of an interesting guy because they keep talking about making him a starter, but they talked about it in the Arizona Fall League we were at, and then they had to shut him down because his arm was sore.
Right, only made 2 appearances in the AFL, didn't play winter ball at all, so and their closer situation isn't necessarily addressed either. It could be Sean Marshall, could be Chapman, could be Massett. They still might make a play for Ryan Madsen or something like that. But at this point in time, yeah, and I doubt that they do. By the way, I think Madsen wants a little bit too much money. So we'll see what happens there. But I think that you look at the situation there with the Reds bullpen, with the Reds and all. They probably don't have a big financial chit to play, but they probably have a smaller one they can still use.
Well, Marshall, I mean, I think they'll at least give him a shot given they just traded for him, but they seem like a good candidate to kind of bounce back to where they were 2 years ago, the Reds as a whole. I like them to do well this year.
I think so, and the fact that Milwaukee's losing Fielder, presumably, and the fact that Cardinals lost Pujols gives some encouragement. Although keep in mind they get Wainwright back, and they just made a nice deal to sign Carlos Beltran. I think he's going to do like Berkman did last year and kind of find himself. Has a full healthy season. I think he's a good fit with that team.
Yeah, St. Louis will be good. Though, I mean, I don't know anyone that really thinks Berkman's going to have the year he did last year. That seems a little hard to duplicate.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. But and a lot of that was health. He was fully healthy for a year. And the thing is, he gets to play first base as opposed to outfield, which is good for all parties involved. If we've all seen his outfield defense and his propensity to get hurt, getting him out of the outfield can only help him a little bit, though.
Yeah, no, they moving him to first and getting Beltran in the outfield and getting Wainwright back there. Their pitching numbers should be better.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing the Rotowire projections come out. Our score sheet player lists always come out about the third week of January, so if your guys come out more like in a week or two, that'll give folks something to study, and then our player lists and fielding ranges and all come out, and then before we know it, it'll be time to start drafting teams.
Yeah. What sort of fielding range do you think Drew Stubbs is going to come back with this year?
It's got to go up.
Yep.
I think that's pretty good. I noticed there's one combined league mock draft going on that you're part of. It's BL Mock Draft is the league if people want to check it out. And I was saying earlier, you guys have probably set a score sheet record for most comments per pick.
We have a lot of verbose players in the league, myself included there. And it's fun to debate these picks. It's fun to kind of define the style of the team you're building. I'm learning a lot from guys like John Maine and Bill Sanders, Nate Stevens. These are some really good fantasy players, some very good score sheet players, and I'm learning a lot from them on just how to construct a good score sheet team.
Yeah, well, if anyone's interested, they should go to our list of leagues and click on the link to BL Mock Draft, and you can see some Jeff Erickson's picks and comments pretty much that are made on every single pick in the mock draft. Well, Jeff, it's been great talking to you. Folks, if you want some information about players, don't forget to go to rotowire.com. you can learn quite a bit by going to that site.
Appreciate it, Jeff.
All right, good talking to you. Thanks much.
All right, take care.
All right.